You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are these things that makes official. Welcome to the big show. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you. At least not as harsh as the rest of your family, because we try and improve your life, make your world better, make you smarter by inviting some of the most amazing authors, minds, storytellers onto the show to share you with their journeys of life and make your life better. And I hope that's what you want, because we don't have authors on that make your life more miserable. We make your life better. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places in the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book's success. Today, we have an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her books and her latest book. It is called Juanita, The Life and Spirituality of Saint Teresa of Jesus of Los Andes. It's out March 4th, 2022 by Jennifer Moorcroft, and she'll be joining us in the show. We're going to get to know her better and some of the other books and works that she's written on. Welcome to the show, Jennifer. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for coming to the show. Give us any .coms or wherever you want people to look you up on the interwebs.
Yes, my website is jennifermoorcroft.com, and the surname is Moorcroft.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
It's the life of Saint Teresa of the Andes, as is popularly known. And I was drawn to her when somebody gave me a prayer card showing her face, this beautiful face of a young woman, and on the other side, a short biography of her. And it showed that she was a typical teenager, loving sports. She was excelled at swimming, horse riding, all sorts of sports, and excellent at school. And yet she's been raised to the altars, as it were, canonized for outstanding holiness. And I was intrigued to find out a bit more about her. So I got the only books in English that I could find that were written by Michael Griffith. And what were those? Her letters, her diary, and then various testimonies and the accounts of beatification and canonization. And I've always in my writing wanted to show the beauty of the Catholic faith and how living it to the full brings real joy. And Juanita just seemed to fit what I wanted to say. And as she said, God is all joy. That is the title of about the first book that I wrote. So the first book that I wrote of her was God is All Joy, which is a biography of her. And then about 4 or 5 or so years afterwards, I wanted to find out more about her spiritual journey. And so I wrote this book, Juanita, which gives a short introduction to her life. And then it goes into the various aspects of her spirituality and how she became an outstanding holiness even before she entered Carmel. And just the final sort of touches, as it were, to her holiness. She spent only 11 months in Carmel before she died of typhoid.
Oh, wow.
Perforated typhoid.
That's no fun.
And so that's why I wrote about her.
And you said she's been vaulted by the church sainthood or something like that. What was the term that you used?
She's been canonized.
Canonized.
Yes,
Is that the same as sainthood? I'm not up to speed
yes,
on
it
how
is.
that all works.
Yes,
Okay. She's well revered by the church and the work that she did. And so you has her story been told before? Is this the first time someone's told her story?
That's it. I don't think there is any other books. There aren't any other books in English apart from Michael Griffith's books and my books. I've written 3. The latest one is actually Godhead Here in Hiding, because I was very struck by the centrality of the Eucharist in her spiritual life. And so I wrote this book giving extracts from her writings and showing her journey, really, giving advice to people like her father, who had given up going to Mass, for example, because he felt that often he wasn't able to get to Mass, and therefore he felt that he was unworthy to go when he could. And so she gave advice to him. And then, like for her friends, some said, I don't like to go to Mass, it's so boring. And she said, what do you prepare beforehand about it? What do you bring to the Mass? And so she encourages her friends to make this journey with her. And so she was a great friend and very well loved by a whole host of friends and family.
Yeah. And it's well revered. So you've written a lot of books I can see here on Amazon. You have a whole plethora of books that are available.
Yes.
Tell us, how many do you have and what do you tend to usually write about?
Mostly I do write about biographies of saints, because I wanted to show the joy, the peace, and the fullness of life that comes with living a Catholic life. I'll say that. I mean, other people can live a full life as outside the Catholic Church. I'm a convert myself, and so I just wanted to try to give to other people how I feel about the Catholic Church, because so often it gets a negative press. You don't hear the good things about it. And so practically all my books were written to show what a wonderful thing the Catholic Church is if you live life to the full within her.
Now, did she pass away when she was the young age of 19?
Yes, she did. Yes.
Wow.
And that
So
was
she accomplished
why I
a
was
lot.
Yes.
She accomplished a lot in quite a few years.
She did, yes. The thing is that in one sense she was very ordinary, and her friends never knew the depth of her spiritual life, and it only came out really when she made her first Holy Communion. And she said that on that day, that I'll read a little bit about it. Yes, she said that, a delicious, for the first time after receiving Holy Communion, for the first time I experienced a delicious peace. A delicious peace. Preparing for this day had been a hard journey. And then she said another remark. I experienced his dear voice for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, up till now, she had been hearing Our Lady's voice, giving her guidance. And then from her first Holy Communion, she began to hear the voice of our Lord guiding her. And she thought that it was that everybody had that. And it wasn't until she mentioned it to her mother and realized that no, not everybody did. And she never spoke of it to anybody except to her spiritual director and confessors, and not even to the prioress when she entered Carmel. She didn't even mention it to the prioress. So she kept all that very secret. And you only saw the fruits of it in the externals of her life.
And so she led a pretty interesting life in a very short time. Sounds like she got a lot done. Evidently, her spirituality reflects what's called the broader Carmelite tradition. What is that? Can you explain what that is to us?
The Carmelite tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Carmel itself, the tradition goes back right to Saint Elijah and Saint Elisha, and the school of prophets on the Mount Carmel in the Holy Land. But it really began when men who came over as crusaders in the Middle Ages, and then they stayed and set up this monastery on Mount Carmel, and they were stayed there until, of course, when the Muslim invaders forced them out. And that's when they came over to the Europe and then to the rest of the world. The most famous saints within the Carmelite order are, of course, Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross, who are two of the great doctors of the spirituality of Carmel. And then, of course, Saint Teresa of the Carmelite order has three doctors of the church, those that have got special gifts of teaching within the church.
Interesting. There you go. Have you written 3 books on her? Did I understand that right? In what you
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
The first book I wrote was God is All Joy, which is the first book I wrote, which was a biography of her. And then Juanita was the second book that I wrote, which goes more deeply into her spiritual life, and it shows her spirituality within the context of the charism, as it's called, of Mount Carmel, of the Carmelite order, as expressed by St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila. The first book that Juanita read was of St. Teresa of Lisieux, because when she was 14, she was very seriously ill with appendicitis, which was almost fatal at that time.
Yeah.
But anyway, she survived, and she was taken to the hacienda at Chacabuco, which belonged to the extended family. And her sister Lucia, who was the eldest of the 5 surviving children, was also unwell. And she began to cry because she thought that Lucia was getting more attention than she was. And then, gazing at a picture of the Sacred Heart, she then heard our Lord say to her, "What? I, Juanita, am alone on the altar for love of you, and you can't even suffer one moment of solitude." And from that time, she realized that there was going to be suffering in her life, But as she said, that I find a sacrifice bathed with tears is no sacrifice. So that externally, she had this great joy, an outgoing personality, and inside, she was following our Lord on the cross, and with the sacrifices that came with changed circumstances in her family, for example. And then the third book, of course, is Godhead Here in Hiding, which, as I said, is her writings on the Eucharist. And that is
What is
used
the
as a
Eucharist
sort
for?
of a meditation, a book for meditation,
Okay.
really.
Okay. For those who might not be aware of that. Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you hope to write about her more in the future? Is she someone you're going to study and research and put more stuff out on?
I'm not really quite sure. I think
Okay.
I've sort of written the 3 books that I feel cover what I wanted to say about Juanita.
So very fascinating, wonderful story. Do you do any consulting or coaching, or do you do any speaking, I guess, of these sort of topics that people can reach out to you on your website to know more?
No, not really. No.
Okay. Any other books that you have coming up, maybe that you're writing or cooking up that putting together that people should know about?
One book that's at the editorial stage is the life of Sister Lucia of Fatima, who was one of the 3 children of Fatima who had the visions of the apparitions of Our Lady. And Sister Lucia entered Carmel, because I do have this interest in Carmelite spirituality and our Carmelite saints. So that should be coming out hopefully sometime this year, but it just depends if the editing can be done in time. And then the last book that I've written, which should actually appear perhaps in about 2 or 3 months' time, is actually a book on the Rosary, because I've been praying the Rosary for over 40 years, and then I suddenly thought, I just want to write down some of the thoughts that I have on it, and then I thought, I think this is another book coming on. And that is actually with the publishers, and it should be published within about 3 or 4 months, 2 or 3 months.
So we can look forward to that. People can follow you on your website to find out more as it comes about and stuff.
Yes.
And then, with the books you've written, who's been your favorite character out of all the books you've written about and stuff?
The first book I ever wrote was on St. Elizabeth of the Trinity. And I came across just one book in English of her when I was just been received into the church, and I was absolutely fascinated by her, and she was my spiritual guide, as it were, the spiritual teacher that I enjoyed most. And so the first book that I ever wrote was about her, and then the book on Juanita, God is All Joy, is the second one. And then Juanita, Elizabeth, and then also I've written about Elizabeth Lesueur, who was a French mystic who lived in the 19th century, born in the 19th century and died in the 20th century. And her cause for canonization is coming up. And she, again, is my favorite, one of my favorites. Those 3, the ones that I love best.
It's good to have that you like that. So as we go out and round out the show, give us a final pitch out for people to pick up your books, get to know you better, et cetera, et cetera.
Really, I've only got the website. And so if anybody wants to contact me, Can I give them my email address?
Yes, please do.
That's jdm79@btinternet.com.
Mm-hmm. It's been wonderful to have you on and delightful, Jennifer. We certainly appreciate it. And very insightful, and what an amazing stories you weave and tell. And we'll look forward to seeing your future works.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Jonas, for tuning in. Order up her book wherever fine books are sold and check out her other books on Amazon. Juanita, The Life and Spirituality of St. Teresa of Jesus of Los Andes by Jennifer Moorcroft. Thanks for reminding us for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time. And that should have us out, Jennifer.